Hey gang, welcome back. As always, I'm Coach Greg. Today we're doing another Q&A. Before we get started, please remember to check out the Nemean fight system. It is available now on Dynamic Striking. It is also available on Amazon as a paperback format, so please check out both. Now, that being said, let's get to today's question, which is it better to be mobile or static and locked into your positioning when it comes to footwork? Is it better to have like a static, stationary footwork or a mobile footwork? The answer to this is unequivocally mobility, always. There's a couple of reasons why people might not choose to do that. So part of it is they have misunderstood forms if they come from a traditional martial arts background. This is where I most commonly see people who are under the impression that I want to be in these deep stances. But that's failure to understand what the form is trying to teach you. You're not lingering there. You're doing movements in a form to work on specific movements. And it just happens to be all those movements are locking into it. But if you look at something like chambering, a commonly misunderstood thing, I'm not chambering just to draw back. I'm chambering because I'm grabbing something and bringing it with me. So if I look at something like a forward punch, I'm going to grab material, pull it back as I step into my punch. So the reason I am going to a static position, a fixed position in this case, is because I'm taking something with me. Very similar to like when I do a lapel drag or a snap down, I'm dropping my weight to use my whole body to manipulate him rather than just my arm. Okay, that is a specific function of going to a deep static stance. Okay. Sometimes you can use it to defend certain takedowns, but it's always better to be mobile in my opinion. There's always more mobile solutions that work better. For example, a hip throw. First of all, if you talk about a headlock position, you can't sit back into it anyway because you'll just get taken over anyway. In that case, you gotta circle around. But if you talk about like an underarm, a classic hip throw, you know, yeah, you can post on the hip or you can swing around and counter with an uchimata. The mobile version is going to give you more opportunities. Same thing in striking. Usually when I see somebody who is less mobile, it is because there is a reason that is preventing them from doing it. Often it is because it's somebody older, somebody who maybe has knee issues, or somebody who's a little bit overweight, or somebody who just doesn't have the athleticism to make that possible. And what happens is that if you look at your three aspects of defense, footwork, head movement, and blocking, they become much more reliant on blocking. And when your entire defense is based on one aspect of just blocking, it's much easier to bypass it. It's always gonna be. It's much easier. And the thing is, like, you can be not mobile. Yeah, you can slip off the line, but your slips are gonna kind of suck, to be honest. It's always much more dynamic when I can add a footwork into my slipping, right? It's always gonna be easier to get my head just off the line. It's gonna be easier to counterweight my hips. It's also gonna be easier to step in with my counters. Always a much more effective solution to add that in. So yes, you can do head movement, but like I said, it's probably not going to be as effective from here, right? So that means that the majority of your defense is based on, I have to be able to just absorb and counter and hope that that's enough and hope nothing slips through. In boxing, you can kind of get away with it because you have the big gloves. But in MMA or kickboxing, stuff like that, when you have smaller or no gloves, you can't really get away with that BS. Sooner or later, things are going to slip through. And even if you can, even if it is something like boxing, where you have the larger gloves, you're still limited, right? Because what I can do with my footwork is create angles that are gonna make it difficult for you. The point of getting angles is not just so I can hit you from different directions. The point of getting angles is to put myself in a position where you now need to turn to face me, and in that time, I have an opportunity to strike. So if I'm stepping off the line and I'm coming here, by the time you've turned to face me, I've thrown my counter punch, right? So I go and pop, pop. And by the time you turn to face me, blam, right? So your response time with less mobility is always going to be less. The best solution for that is to follow that motion with a step over yourself. So in this case, like the step over, if somebody's doing that to me, right, I'm going to step over and follow them, right? I'm going to come back here and I'm going to try to match their movement as they start to change angles so that way they can't hit that angle on me very easily. But if I'm not doing that, or if they're trying to press in, right, I need to be able to be mobile to match them. And if I'm not doing that, man, you're gonna be in for a rough day. Like your defense and blocking better be something astronomical. Sooner or later, things are gonna start slipping through. Even if it's boxing, you do have the bigger gloves. Footwork just makes a lot more possible, right? If you look at some of your top fighters, your Lomachenkos who just float. I can't even do what he does, man. That guy's crazy. Or your Mike Tyson, your penalty steps, right? Like, all of your best fighters, it's just, footwork is gonna be hugely superior. And you talk about like MMA or self-defense, it's even more so because being able to be outside of that kicking game and close the gap is gonna be really instrumental. So I will say unequivocally, footwork is always superior to have mobile footwork. It's just more athletic. So I hope that answers your question. Thanks for watching, guys.